Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another OTS production. We have some very special guests with us here tonight. We've got the Destiny Junior crew. So we've got Nick the Bug and Rebel Trader, and of course 86 here from On the Sensor. So how's everyone doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys coming out the night before a big US holiday. I know there's lots of other things you could be doing, so definitely appreciate, you guys coming out. So we wanted to, this was an idea that 86 had. We wanted to talk about, competitive play how maybe for newer folks, how can you, what things can you practice? What skills can you improve on to make yourself a better Destiny player? But even before we get into that, just love to hear from you, Nick and Rebel Trader, tell us about yourselves. What's your history with the game? What do you have going on in life? Maybe we'll start with you, Nick.
Yeah. For life in general, I am currently a college student. I'm a second-year college student studying music theater. Other than that, I play card games in my very limited free time. I always was super interested in card games. I took a lot of economics classes in high school and some game theory stuff, and I was super interested in the game theory behind games like Destiny, but I was afraid to get into something like Magic because it had such a long history. So I saw an ad for Destiny like a month before it released, and I was like, that's a brand new game. I love Star Wars. I'm going to dive headfirst into this, and the rest is history.
Awesome, man. That's pretty interesting. Cool. Thanks, Nick. How about you, Rebel Trader?
Hello. I'm a senior in high school. We're called Destiny Junior for a reason. We're the younger crowd, but I mean, Nick's been around since the beginning, so we're not exactly newbies. So I basically got into Destiny. I've always kind of been a Star Wars fan. So I got into Destiny one Christmas because my parents decided to get me and my sibling the 2-player game. My sibling didn't catch on, but I did. And at that point in time, I had just gotten out of Yu-Gi-Oh, which I'd been playing for a while. Because I played it when I was a kid because it was super popular. But then as I got older, I actually enjoyed it, so I kept getting more into the competitive aspect. But I eventually quit that game because it became super toxic, and my other friend that I played it with quit. So yeah, I got into Destiny, and I enjoyed it. And I've been a fan since. And then once COVID hit, I ended up getting on TTS, playing a few tournaments, and then I met Nick and Iceberg, I think, who's no longer with us. Or, well, he's with us, but he hasn't played online in a while.
Yeah, he's still living, right? Hasn't passed on?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So basically, I got together a bunch of Destiny Junior, which was a bunch of younger players, and we, I think for a while we were arguably the top team in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Bold statement, but I think it's accurate. Cool.
I don't know anymore because
I don't think
we're kind of
anymore.
out of practice. But
We could get there though.
a couple summers ago, we were the kings of the game.
Awesome. 86, what are you thinking, man? I know you wanted to learn something from these guys and help impart some key messages for our viewers today.
I got nothing, so might as well say bye. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you guys. So today we're kind of going to focus on that competitive aspect again, and how can I focus my time? So it's not something that, there's a lot of times where you just play and play and play, and you're like, man, I'm hitting a plateau. I'm not getting any better. I said that like a really weird plateau. So I want to focus on my time, and I want to see what I can do to get better, what skills I can actually work on, and how can I work on those? Because I can watch. We talked in previous videos about watching videos, watching other people play, and taking notes and learning from that. But what am I really doing, and what am I really going to get out of my time? So we're going to start there. So with that, do you guys have anything you would like to contribute at the start, or would you like me to prod you with some questions?
A little bit of something. The main thing for me, after you've built a deck, which I'd like to talk about a little bit, deck building is my favorite part of card games, and I think it's really an important aspect of being competitive. But once you've built your deck and you're doing your practice, I think it's important to focus on things you're likely to see Um, for example, if you just play against one person and they have one deck that they constantly play, you're going to get really good at playing against that deck and no other decks. So, for example, if you think I need to play against a mill deck and an aggro deck and a control deck, then you play against those three, and then you have a little bit of diversity in what you're playing against. And you've sort of honed your time and used it to learn a wide swath of things. The other thing that I did was I started recording my own play, and then I can watch it back later and say, oh, I wouldn't do that in retrospect, or I wouldn't do that, or that was a good move. Things like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you,
so,
RC?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just paying attention to specific things. Like watching videos is great. Watching games, playing games, all that's really great. But if all you're doing is just watching or playing games, then you're probably not going to get that much better. You got to pay attention to specific things. Like if you're watching a video and someone does an action that you think was kind of weird, you might think to yourself, why did they do that? So paying attention to specific aspects like sequencing. Like, why are players playing things in this way? Why is my opponent doing this? What card might they have that would make them do that? So, trying to get reads on like what your opponent has, or if you're like watching a game, trying to figure out why a person is taking a certain route. That's the big thing for me. Play a lot, watch a lot, but do it in a way that you're actually paying attention and trying to learn things.
And that's one
actually
thing
have
I think. Oh, sorry, Majo.
No, go ahead, 86. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I said that's one thing that has been prominent in anything I've done, whether it be esports, actual sports, even card games. Just watching a recording of yourself, and it's different too with things that are real time. What's your reaction? Why did you take that reaction? I remember, Smash Brothers is Street Fighter. Why did you block this hit, or why were you standing in shield? It's like, well, I was waiting for this, and I didn't think I could react to it. But my opponent was this far away; they were out of range for these moves. Why didn't I act this way instead? So, really, just reevaluating yourself. So, watching other people is great, but also watching yourself and seeing what you do is going to be really good with the time that you focus. Majo, I think you had something.
So Rebel Trader, that's an interesting point you made, because it's not just about watching yourself or watching someone else, but you have to pay attention to specific things. So in the top 8 from this past weekend, from the Unlikely Heroes release event, we saw Beacon Fire. Cool example of what you said, right? Beacon Fire was facing Algaroth. Beacon Fire was on this 3-wide unique pilot deck with ace pilots. Algaroth was playing Mando Rebel Sniper. Beacon Fire has one character left. Algaroth has, Mando left. And Mando's got a 3-gun in the pool. That's the only character die he's got out there. And then Beacon Fire plays Crash Landing. And you're like, what? You're just going to take the 3 anyway. Like, why are you Crash Landing that 3 gun die? And it's because Algaroth was running Negotiate. Right, and Negotiate is remove a character die and force your opponent to remove 2 of their dice. So, like, having that presence of mind, paying attention to what's in someone's deck or what's in their discard pile, and because of that, I'm pretty sure that was probably the reason Beacon wins that game. Right, he saves himself to 2 dice, and anyway, it's just an interesting point. So, yeah, 86. Let's get back to it, man. Yeah,
I think he won that turn with just removing that. So if he would have lost his die, that would have been a big thing. One thing that was brought up that I think is really irrelevant was deck building. So, and that's one thing. It's very easy to go out and grab a deck from the database and just find what other people are running, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's good to do. But sometimes you like to have a homebrew, so to speak, and and it's one thing we would talk about is how to get better at that. And one thing I think that a lot of people start off doing is everybody knows jank, right? You build jank. Everybody knows what that phrase means. I mean, if you're trying one deck and you're trying to center everything around this combination that you have. So you, one thing I think about is 10th Brother, Bazine, Jetpack. So you get the specials, then you keep upping it, and then you do damage from the Jetpack. Granted, you're centering everything around if you get those. You have 2 in the deck, but it's 1 card. So you might learn that, well, what are other specials I can use? So you might use the combat droid if it's Convergence. And you really just try to expand on that. Kind of another example is you might use Pyre and think, well, what are things I can do to rotate the battlefield and keep it around? So then you learn, well, here's what I can do to keep the battlefield, here's what I can do to give it away, and here's what I can do to kind of keep that going in the turn with how many resources I have. So just kind of finding ways to expand on that jank, I think also helps you build decks better. I didn't know if you guys had what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like fine-tuning cards, trying to figure out what your win condition is, how to build towards that. Those are really good steps to take. And also you mentioned like taking lists from the DB. That can be really, really helpful. So one thing that I like to do is take lists from the DB and be like, okay, I don't like this card, so I'm taking it out. And just trying to figure out like why cards are in there, and just trying to iterate on other people's lists, like starting from a spot that did well, and then just trying to make it so if it's like how you play better. Yeah.
It's a really great point. I like what you said. Sorry, Nick, let you go in 1 second. So, like, WinCon. What is your WinCon? I think that's so important. You kind of have to know that, or you should, right? When you know your WinCon, then you kind of know how to shape your turn. You know what cards you're hoping to draw. So, yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to agree with the DB point. People's decks that are on there usually have a great foundation, and you can improve on that foundation, and it's not cheating or whatever to take something somebody else has made and make it better. As for the jank thing, I think it's the problem with jank for me is twofold. The first is you have to draw your combo card, and that can be very difficult. The second is if you're basing your entire win condition on one dice, it's really easy to be removed. For example, if your entire win condition is you resolve that jetpack special for 1 million, and then they remove the jetpack special, then what do you do? So I think, if you're building that deck, it's okay to have jetpack in there. That's great. That's an awesome combo, but you have to have other things that also put pressure on your opponent in case they remove that die. Then you can still push your win condition forward.
Like at Destiny Junior, we've been big fans of the Combat Droid reset deck with Cassian. It was one of my favorite decks in Faltering Allegiances. It was like Cassian, Babu, and Satine, and you'd basically like use Cassian to reset Combat Droid. But you also were running like Entourage, which oftentimes Entourage would end up being what actually won you games because it would just remove the Combat Droid die. So yeah, just figuring out how to build multiple pushes into that. But yeah, focusing on a certain win condition, while also like having multiple pushes,
There's something to be said for value too. Like, for example, the combat droid gains value because you have Cassian. And so combat droid in that deck is more valuable than in another deck. But Entourage is valuable in any deck. So you can throw it into this deck and it's just going to bring value to your deck no matter what. So now you're no longer reliant on your one combo because you have these value cards in your deck that will function if you draw them.
Yeah. I like what you said too, Nick, about the DB, and and I hope there isn't a stigma about stealing a list, right? I mean, that's the whole reason people publish them is they want to share their ideas, they want people to iterate. Some people might be really proud; they want to like be the first one to publish it, and that's great too. But I sometimes I know like I'll be playing like late night, and me and 86 are just like it'll be like midnight. We're like, let's just get one more game in. I'm like, dude, I don't know what I want to play. I'm just gonna like roll the dice and just find some random deck from the DB. And it's kind of fun forcing yourself to learn it. Like a quick glance at it, all right, I kind of have a sense of what the WinCon is, but there's actually some learning, I think, in just forcing yourself to play a deck you're completely unfamiliar with. So, that's a cool learning way to learn too.
I think that is an excellent point too. We talked a little bit, I think Nick said play styles. He said that word. And you talk about learning a deck. As someone who has ran Jango Boba any means necessary, rest in peace. without the nail gun. But anyway, I ran that for a long time, and it's really ingrained in me. I want to play every card of my hand, and the deck I ran this last release event weekend, I maybe played 2 cards from my hand a turn, and the rest were just cards as reroll. And that was big for me, just because I've always played that deck. I love that deck. I still love it. I'll still play it. But it's just that play style of, well, I have any means, so I can remove a blank to deal damage. Everything in here, I maybe discard a reroll once if I really have to, but it's not something I like doing. But I want to play bounties. Essentially, my hand is my tool. Like I want to use everything from my hand. I want to play it. If I play bounties, it's just going to roll back in Boba Fett, or it's going to let me turn Gauntlet Rockets inside. And I liked that because of Captured, because I could utilize everything on it. So it was a really aggro deck. Was it the best in the world ever? No, but it was something that I felt like I was a little bit better with, and just because I've learned that play style, I was ingrained, and I could pick up as soon as I had that deck in my hand. I knew exactly what I was going to do on my turn. I knew everything I was going to do, and that switched a lot release event weekend when I played a different deck. So that kind of gives me a thought was, well, this is what I would do, but I want to think about this, and what's potent here? Do I need to focus on removal? Do I need to focus on being aggro? And kind of giving it a spot from there.
Yeah, and just to be clear for the viewers, 86, you ran Pre-Vizsla, Pyre, and the Mission That Never Ends, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, I think, it's an interesting point 86 made. He loved the Fets, the bounty hunters. And, what do so like Nick and RT, what do you guys think about playing a deck so much that you know it so well, and does that let you springboard and help you learn other things? Like when you learn something just like the back of your hand, does that are there lessons there? Can that translate into other areas?
Absolutely. I was gonna say I have 2 thoughts. The first is he mentioned that maybe the Fets weren't the best deck in the world, but that he knew them really well, and I think it's more important to play something that clicks with you and how you play and that you know really well than to play what is technically the best deck. If I know a deck super well, and then I find out the day before an event that some other deck, is way better, I'm not going to switch the day before an event, because I would rather play something that I know and that I'm confident with. The other thing that he mentioned that I was going to springboard off of was he mentioned playing other decks. You did as well. You mentioned playing other people's decks sometimes. And I think that's really important for me when I'm trying to learn the card pool and learn what different cards do. I don't want to just play against Mill, for example. I want to play Mill myself and learn how Mill runs, and then I know more how to take it down. So if I know what my opponent's plans are going to be because I've played their deck, then I can work mine better against them.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a big fan of hero supports. I think hero supports really was what drew me into the competitive aspect of this game. A lot of people are like, yeah, I love playing 2-wide aggro. I'm like, yeah, 4-wide hero supports, that's my stuff. Love it. I was like, hero. I played 4-wide back in Legacies and Way of the Forest, and I knew that deck super well, better than everybody. I would see I'd say oh, I did well at this event, and then someone would post a list, and I'd be like, wow, there's so many things wrong with that list. Just because I'd played the deck so many times, I knew how it operated. And yeah, I think Nick said something that's very good is you should generally play decks that you're confident with over decks that you think might be better, but that you don't know as well. And that, especially when you're just getting into it, when you're more experienced, you can take a deck the night before and do well with it. That's what I did at the Redemption mid-cycle event. I played Pirates, and I had 1 rep on it, and I ended up winning the tournament. And I had to play a bunch of mirrors too, which yeah. So yeah, just learn if you have a deck that you love, keep building it better. Yeah, don't be afraid to experiment though, because sometimes you get locked in on something and it ends up being terrible in this format.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's kind of what happened to me at the at the release event. Like I played Rescue Han, which is a deck that I played a lot throughout high stakes, and it didn't do quite as well because it ended up actually losing a lot more from rotation than I thought it would.
Mhm.
So yeah, I went 3-3. The deck performed okay, but like I could have done better. So yeah, just be careful, but yeah, be confident with a deck and play that deck when possible.
I can feel it there because I got so many things. I'm like, I know this is gonna work. I just need to do the right thing. So for my Rescue Han deck, I run Kara and Sinjir, and so it's a red and yellow Rescue Han hero, and it's just about like, I get Sinjir, get General in him, I can remove die, and I can get resources that way, and I really just need to maximize everything I get, but then it just doesn't do the damage till Han comes out and I have a massive board state, but by then I have probably 5 cards left. Now I'm very potent when I have 5 cards left, but it has 5 cards left. So.
Yeah.
And yeah, another thing with cards is there's a general rule that I like to follow. This is kind of from my Yu-Gi-Oh days, which it's like cards are a lot more important in Yu-Gi-Oh than they are in this game. But generally, the more cards you see, the better. So I'll often like discard cards that are really good that I just know I'm not going to play, like eject, right? If I'm not in a position where I'm going to play eject the next round, I'll ditch it. And a lot of people like hold on to it, being like, "Oh, I'll need this later." But like, no, you actually need to see another card. Because actually, that card isn't 1 card, it's 2 cards, because you're going to have it in your next hand. So you're getting 2 cards deeper. And this is kind of where the 28 card deck meme started, which if you follow Destiny Junior, you'll know that. But I was a big fan of Force Affinity when FA came out, because it lets you play a 28 card deck. And then the other thing that I've been playing a lot in my Rescue Han decks is Contraband Seizure, which is the one that lets you take back resources. But it has the text that just says draw card. So you can just play it to draw a card, even if your opponent didn't take any resources from you. It lets you play like essentially a 28 card deck, because that card is just representing the top card of your deck when you play it.
So Rebel, you probably love Undercity then, one that lets you filter a card.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I'm a big fan.
I also love that one. Yeah.
It seems like in this newer set here, Unlikely Heroes, there's multiple cards that have some like card draw effect. We've got that bounty that lets you draw a card when the character is activated or defeated. We have Undercity.
So cool.
Yeah, there's that blue.
Cody.
Yeah, Cody. There's the blue. It's like it's got renew on it. It's just like basically just draw a card. I forget exactly, but yeah, there's multiple card draw effects. And I know in other games like Magic, card draw and hand advantage is just it's a must. It's tremendous. It gives you a huge advantage. Has Destiny, in my opinion, I mean, and I'm not like the best player by any means, hasn't always really been that way, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it will start to be.
I really think it always has been that way, but people just don't view it as if it is.
Okay.
And that was really, I think, RT's genius with the 28 card deck thing. Seriously, because it is just really important that you see the cards that you need to see. And he mentioned, if I'm not going to play Eject next round, I'm going to ditch it. And I think that's super important because you have another copy of Eject in your deck. If you don't ditch it, and then you draw a 4-card hand, what happens if you draw a second copy of Eject that you're still not going to play next round? Now 2 of your cards are useless. So, you pitch it, and then you get the second copy later when you need it.
Yeah.
That's kind
the
of
thing
thing
with cards in Destiny is basically like in Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, like those are your only options basically, like that and what you already have on the table. In Destiny, you have like character dice, you have resources. So there's a lot more other things to contribute to stuff. So the thing with cards isn't like having more than your opponent in your hand, but like being able to see more cards in your opponent is absolutely important.
I think that was a big thing with the Fett deck. It's the one I said I'd try to play every card in my hand. I knew like, okay, I have this many equipment. My mitigation was reversal, electroshock. It wasn't tangled before that rotated, but electroshock and armor plating. So I had those 3 mitigation cards. 2 of those, I had 1 support. That was Slave 1. 2 of those, I had 8 bounties in it, and I could count on back to therapy as mitigation as well, even though it's healing. But I counted as mit. And then, going off the equipments from there to kind of get resources and kind of build up. And I think that was really key, is just like knowing like, okay, well, I've played through 15 cards, and it kind of gave a sense of when I was okay taking damage too and when to remove it. Like, he's going to play this. I don't need to pop armor plating. He's going to have unblockable damage, 8, and then he's going to deal 2. Like, maybe not right now, or maybe I want to do it later. If I was down to like 10 cards and I haven't seen Armed to the Teeth yet, there's a pretty good chance it was going to come soon. So I might have just take 8 the damage to play that and remove upgrades and deal damage. So one thing I think is really good that you get from playing and incorporating and watching all these people is understanding when to take damage and when not to take damage. When can you
Absolutely.
be more aggro and send it at someone versus when can you say, you know what, I'll just take it and go from here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any specific examples of maybe going aggro or being defensive, or when that's helped you win a game, just understanding what someone's going to do?
Yeah, so the general rule I like to follow is that you don't want to remove dice just to remove dice. You generally like are removing dice for the purpose of keeping your characters alive because they're going to help you increase your ceiling. So like if your opponent like first turn, if they're just going to resolve dice into you, even if it's like a lot of damage, you probably don't want to remove it. You want to be spending that money on upgrades or supports, stuff that gets you stuff. Which like a lot of times, if you're watching commentary, you might like see someone play Headstrong turn 1, and usually the commentator always be like, "You shouldn't have done that," because that Headstrong could have been like a Westar, which would have gotten you like 4 damage by round 2, versus Headstrong, which is just preventing damage, which isn't going to kill your character anyway. So it's generally like you want to do stuff for you more than you want to do stuff to harm your opponent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at Destiny Junior, we remove a lot less damage early than a lot of people. Until I'm in danger of potentially dying, I won't remove a damage dice. I would rather remove a resource side than that's going to get you, another thing. Or I would rather spend my money on something that's going to get me a thing and advance my game plan. I'm in danger of losing at this point. I'm in danger of falling behind.
Yeah, that's a great point, guys. Actually, that was a lesson 86 you helped me learn like pretty early on. When I started playing Destiny, is like stop mitigating. Stop spending money on mitigation. Right, like use your health as a resource, especially if you've got a character that's got 12 health. Like it's okay if you go down to like half health round 1. I mean, it doesn't always feel that great, but your character might still have 2 more rounds out of them. And I just think there's like this reactionary, man, I just got, pelted. I have to remove that die. But sometimes, as long as you have the right cards to be offensive, you don't always have to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So.
And yeah, the other thing is killing a character is always the best removal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something we say a lot.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well said. So, as we start to close out here, anything you guys want to impart? Again, going back to 86's sort of mission for us tonight about thinking about those newer players, right? People who are maybe just joining the community, and like, what can they do, right? I mean, we've talked about a lot, but any like final parting thoughts you might share with them?
I feel like personally, when I was newer, I felt like my biggest struggle was deck building. I never really knew exactly what to put in my deck. So there's 2 thoughts I have for this. The first is you can ask for help. You post your list on one of the Discords and people will respond. This card isn't super good value, or you should include this card. Where's this card? Things like that. The second thing for me is I love experimentation. If I have a character pairing that I really like, and I have like 20 cards that are like shoe-ins, and I have 10 slots, and I don't know what to put there, I'll play like 5 games, and I'll rotate those last 10 cards, and I'll see, these 2 cards, that was super impactful in this game, or these 2 cards, those didn't help me at all. And then I know, I don't have to worry about including those, or I definitely have to put these ones in.
Nice. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah,
RT?
and if you're playtesting, like either by yourself or with other people, you don't have to like rely on random chance that you see a card. Like if you want to test something out, you can just be like, all right, I'm just gonna put this in my opening hand and see how it does. Because I mean, there's no actual stakes to that game. You're just testing. Don't do that in a tournament though.
I just wanted to see what happened.
But yeah, just
Looks like it went
just I'm gonna go back to where I started. Just pay attention to specific things. Make sure you're playing a lot of games, watching a lot of games. Make sure you're doing it with a focus on specific things that will make you better. Yeah.
Nice. I love that idea. Real quick, 86, and I'm going to pass it over to you. I think that's awesome. I think having a play group, and I know the Destiny Junior guys, you guys are tight knit. Obviously, any of your buddies are not going to care if you want to stack your opening hand just for testing purposes. So it's awesome. I mean, I know a lot of us are all we have at this point, and I hope it changes next year. But all we have for now is TTS, right? But still, you can have like a play group, people you play with commonly, kind of become your buddies. Like they're not going to care. Just ask them, hey, can I put this in my hand? And I want to give a shout out to Beacon Fire because he actually had a really cool idea in a previous video we did with him. 86. He said, if you want to really figure out what your deck wants to do, don't put any mitigation in it. Just don't put any mitigation in it. Don't remove any dice. Just figure it out. What is it you're trying to accomplish? You might die quickly, but you'll at least know what your win con is. So
yeah, there's a higher level game theory concept that you might have heard about called Who's the Beatdown, and the basic concept of that is which deck would win without any defensive cards. So yeah, figuring out how much removal you need.
Essentially, which card has the highest ceiling.
Yeah, it's the highest ceiling wins. So we can talk about that a bit, but basically, actually, no, I don't want to get into the whole Who's the Beatdown thing. You can look it up. There's a great article on it.
Let's do part 2.
Make a video on it later. But yeah.
So there's an actual article. Can we put that in the description or something?
Yeah, that's Who's the Beatdown is the name of the article. Let me see if I can.
We'll link it.
It's from 20 years ago, I think, though, and it's about Magic, so you have to know Magic.
Got it.
It's right under Who's the Boss, right above it in alphabetical order. I was going to say one thing. Rebel Trader said something really good. I want to reiterate on that is seeing what your deck does if you put things that you want in your hand. See what your deck does and make note of that. Don't just okay, well, I got this combo off. That was really good. It did this. If you really get that every time, do you feel like that's a good strategy? Do you feel like that's good? And then figure out, okay, well, what if I don't get that and what your deck can do? I think that's also good advice too, is to figure out if I just get the worst hand ever. If I'm playing my Fett deck, if I get 2 Armed to the Teeth, 2 Back to Therapies, and hunt them down in my opening hand, after I mulligan, I got those same cards back. I literally have nothing I can play. What am I going to do in this situation, and what's going to be the outcome? And kind of figure out your strategy to get out of that paper bag. And kind of the thing my closing thoughts would just be see everyone around and kind of see what their skills are and how that relates to everything they're doing. So Norm, for example, because he's really good at this and he taught me a lot here. So I remember one match we played and I had Vader Savage and he had Wolfaroo and some other players, Tarful, probably another Wookiee, and he
teach you how to dirt?
Yeah, taught me how to dirtle. I kept getting him down, and I thought, we did everything we were going to do, and then he played You're in Command Now and Admiral. It was maybe he had 3 cards, so I didn't think much was coming. And that was one thing, just that interaction, just letting me sit there, and I spent my mitigation because I didn't think he could do anything else. I thought he was spinning his wheels. So that really was key, and I used that a lot this past weekend, just going through okay, when do I take the battlefield? When do I want to not take the battlefield? Do I think they're going to claim? Okay, what's an action I can do here that just isn't me passing so they can pass, and then we restart up? And giving things to put actions in if you feel like that can give you the advantage. If your opponent hurries and claims, like it takes the stress off because they can't remove any die unless they play tactical advantage, or they have a Viper Probe droid out. Those things really kind of go against the green. They're there, but knowing like, okay, I have a merchant freighter, I have an inhibitor chip, I have a 5.0 first, or I have an E-Web I can activate. Like just all the things that you can play and kind of keep the turn going, because eventually your opponent's going to do one of two things. They're going to pass, and they're going to keep passing and waiting for you to do something, or they're just going to give up and say, I'll just claim and let you go on. And knowing when to do the right thing, I think, Norm is really good at that. Vika is really good at maximizing his damage and managing his resources, and I think that was really good. Just watching him play and how he maximizes everything he's going to send out, and just looking at those people in the community, they're big names because of something they do, not because that I think that X person is the end all be all and everything they do is great. But I think they have a skill set that is invaluable to them. And learning that skill set, I think, is very helpful in how to use it effectively.
Yeah.
Well said.
It's important to always play to your outs and always count max damage. You'll find me, like, if you ever watch me, sometimes I'll, like, stream a game that I'm playing, and I'll do, like, my ramblings along with it. And I'll always be, like, counting, like, my max damage or my opponent's max damage to make sure that, like, I'm not going to die or that I'm going to be able to kill a character. Yeah. And then, play to your outs. Like, that's part of who's the beatdown, is if you're behind, you gotta take risks, figure out how you're going to get back into the game. Like, if you know you're only out as Admiral, like, I think it was an Admiral deck that I was playing one time, and I knew that, like, Admiral was my only win condition. And my opponent had, like, a 1 discard showing. I ended up playing, like, a removal card to remove that discard side on the off chance that they would discard my Admiral. So you gotta figure out how you're gonna win and just play to that if you're behind. Awesome.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Nick the Bug, RT, 86. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and close it out. Again, thanks a lot, to the Destiny Junior guys. I had a lot of fun doing this. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Hopefully you learned this. Share it. Try some of the things we mentioned tonight. So, all right, fellas, we'll go ahead and close out there. Thanks everyone for coming out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.